All right. Hello, hello. Do you hear me? No? 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 Yes? All right. Thank you. So, dear Madam Minister, I don't know where she is now. She comes back. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, it's with great pleasure that I welcome you here as in my role of chairman of the Belgian Hydrogen Council. The Belgian Hydrogen Council, as you know, it unites all relevant companies, more than 100 companies in Belgium in the hydrogen ecosystem. It's the voice of the sector, towards national and international policymakers. It inspires and promotes, stimulates, encourages collaboration among its members. This is our first COP because the Belgian Hydrogen Council was only created during this year. And it does not mean in the last years we did not work, of course, very hard to get this hydrogen economy and how this can take off. It all started with a dream, pictures of possible future, inspiring notes, but today we are way beyond those dreams because those dreams have been transformed into plans, planning cycles, each of us building our roadmaps and finding new agreements and partnerships. And it is in this background and climate of cooperation that the Council was founded, because we do believe by teaming up, all of us, that we will be aligned, that we will be stronger, and we have a common belief that Belgium can be a frontrunner in the hydrogen economy. So this is the Council of the Willing. And why are we so convinced? For several reasons. First of all, Belgium can count on strong federal and regional policy support. Both the federal and the Flemish governments have their own hydrogen strategies. They are quite aligned. And the last revision of the federal hydrogen strategy was launched last year in our own port house by the minister. Second, the offtake is guaranteed. And just to name some, we are, as you know, we are the biggest petrochemical cluster in Europe. Antwerp is a big ammonia hub today. We have the biggest ammonia tank capacity as we speak. And 50% of our ammonia, which we will import in future, will stay in ammonia as a feedstock. Steel, cement, glass, fertilizers companies are looking to reduce their CO2 footprint using hydrogen and CCU solutions. We are, of course, in the middle of the European logistic hotspot formed by Rotterdam, North Sea Port, Port of Antwerp-Bruges, and even going to the biggest European fluvial port, Duisburg. This opportunity, it is a heavy challenge for heavy-duty transport, but it's also the highest concentration of truck transport, which we need to make green as an opportunity to make it future-proof. Altogether, our ambition as Belgium is to import in the years to come by 2030 between 35 and 50 terawatt-hour, meaning more or less 1.7 million ton of hydrogen, direction of 10 million ton of ammonia, a huge figure. Thirdly, we have important import building blocks at hand. We have a strategic and historical location in the heart of Europe with a reach to 60% of Europe's business already today. We are blessed with four port platforms in this area, and we do have the second largest hydrogen network which runs through our country, connecting industrial zones like France, Belgium, Netherlands and Germany. We are clearly also expanding that infrastructure. We do have on the design table more than 4 landing terminals and cracking installations on our design table today. Next year already a demo installation of Air Liquide 2024, first cracker, demo cracker, an open access of terminal of VTTI on the design table, 2 times 100,000 ton, if I'm right, of Fluxys at Vario, open access terminal. Then a hydrogen backbone, which is in preparation, with a timeline 2026 in the country, 2028 to the German border. But also on CO2, we are joining forces, building together a CO2 backbone, a project of the port and Fluxys together, building a CO2 terminal in the port of Antwerp, and a liquefaction installation. All projects where an FID on the liquefaction terminal will be taken in the course of next year. So not only on importation, but also on local production, we do walk the talk. We have sufficient innovative initiatives, several of a kind. A methanol, green methanol project capturing CO2 using green hydrogen. And North Sea Port has an installation on the design table of 67 megawatt plant. In Bruges, we plan a 25 megawatt plant installation by high wind. In Antwerp, a 100 megawatt plant by plug power by 2025. But also projects to decarbonize existing SMR installations in Antwerp and as such go to low carbon H2. Last, we do have also important hydrogen technology champions. Belgium has all assets to play a major role in the production technology. We host worldwide leading electrolyzer companies, but are also strong in components for those electrolyzers, such as membranes, bipolar plates, porous transport layers, catalysts. Products produced and scaled up in Belgium. And that is why the Council, we focus on policy, infrastructure, promotion, international collaboration between the parties, and education. You do understand that it is all about cooperation. The project of the willing, working together as a strong partnership with the German Hydrogen Council is of absolute essence. And that's why we are very honored that Katrien Reiche, she will give us her insights. The importance of her council. Katrien is not only the CEO of West Energy, but also the leading lady, the chair lady of the German Hydrogen Council. Katrien, the floor is yours.
So, try to get this work. Well, we have to try to be louder than the guys over there. I do my best. So, good afternoon, everybody. Excellency, Minister, I feel very honored that you take your time being here. Dear Tom, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the invitation and organizing this event. I'm delighted to be part of this afternoon discussion, not because we have already met this morning, Tom, we're circling around these days, but because I think that we need a very close partnership between the Belgium and the German Hydrogen Council. That has never been more important than in these days. One thing is abundantly clear, hydrogen is a clear building block in the future Europe, in the future goals of Europe. And Belgium and Germany will play a major role in this. Belgium with its efficient port infrastructure, Germany as a focus of industrial demand, industrial consumption, and partly as a transit country. Since July 2020, I've been the chairwoman of the National Hydrogen Council in Germany. The German federal government put us in place, and I was very pleased to take this task for two reasons. First one, I was also for a long time member of parliament and a state secretary, and I had to organize different kind of phase out. The phase out of nuclear, the phase out of German coal. This time, it's not about phasing out and closing something and ending something. This time, it's building something new. Working for the Hydrogen Council is a lot more pleasing. As I said, we start something new. We start with common goals. We start with an impressive infrastructure throughout Europe. We start at a point where mainly all countries and also all political parties support hydrogen. That is not very rarely in politics that different parties agree on the same topic, and hydrogen, it is like this. But also because our two countries don't have really alternatives than to build up a viable hydrogen chain and a hydrogen economy. Maybe first some insight into the German National Hydrogen Council. We consist of 25 experts. I would say 80% from business, CEOs of corporate Germany, you know, Linde, of course, OGE, Siemens Energy, Covestro, Daimler Trucks, science and civil society. So it's a broad mixture of different perspectives, what's good. Our members have expertise in hydrogen generation, in research and innovation, decarbonization of industry and transportation, and climate and sustainability. When the German government decided to establish the National Hydrogen Council, it was a milestone because it lended impetus to the energy market transformation. And the NHC advises and supports the State Secretaries Committee for Hydrogen with proposals and recommendations. We have 6 standing groups and subgroups. They draft and prepare position papers, white papers, and studies. The Council then deliberates on them and adopts them in plenary sessions. Afterwards, we forward them to the State Secretary Committee on Hydrogen. And as former politician, for me, it's extremely nice. I can say what I think, and politics is free to take my advice, or they can leave it. But surprisingly, due to the mixture of experts at the Hydrogen Council, we are very pleased to come then to a more serious part. We're very pleased that we are well heard and that we have a close connection to our government. We have also worked at the National Hydrogen Strategy and made recommendations on how to implement and further develop. And we have published the National Hydrogen Action Plan. It proposes 80 measures on how to further develop the strategy. I'm sure we will talk about some of these measures in our subsequent panel discussion. What are some of the topics that NHA will deal in the near future? First, the hydrogen core network. I think that is crucial. We saw it in other technology, the famous hen-egg problem. This time we can't let infrastructure again be a bottleneck. The government decided a couple of days ago the total length of the core network will be approximately 9,700 kilometers. And it consists mainly of converted natural gas pipeline. The TSO estimates the required investments at nearly 20 billion euro. But not only TSOs are addressed, the core network also addresses the DSO. For instance, Westenergie, we put some high-pressure pipeline also into the so-called start grid. This core network represents a crucial first step toward a hydrogen network infrastructure. It will create central connections for major production and import point, for storage facilities, and for large consumption regions. It is expected to be operational by the year 2032, and here we are already facing a difficulty. If Belgium is ready in the late 20s and we in the early 30s, we should think how to connect and maybe be a little bit faster on the German side. But there are a lot of other critical elements that the National Hydrogen Council will focus on. New, effective support mechanism to make hydrogen competitive with fossil fuels. Pragmatic certification of renewable and low-carbon hydrogen. And hydrogen exchange that ensures proper market functioning and transparent, efficient pricing. And a positive climate for investments. An interest rate of nowadays 6.69% for the regulated asset base, it's not really high, or the import strategy, and especially when it comes to infrastructure and imports, Belgium and Germany have a lot of touch points, but sometimes we could and copy a little bit of what Belgium is doing. The current forecast of the National Hydrogen Council assumes Germany has a demand of 41 million tons of hydrogen by 2045. 41 million tons. Firstly, we need it for industrial application. Not every sector will use green electricity. Clean hydrogen is one of the most promising solutions for the decarbonization of a lot of sectors. You know them all: steel, chemistry, glass, cement, you can name it. It takes about 60 kilograms of hydrogen to produce 1 ton of steel. 6 million tons per year for clean hydrogen could decarbonize the entire domestic primary production of steel in Europe. Second, we look for hydrogen in the heating sector, not in district heating primarily, but in process heating. Via the German DSOs, 1.8 million companies are supplied nowadays with gas, and at least 70% of them need process gas. That means if they really want to decarbonize their own processes too, they have to get access to green molecules. And thirdly, we need hydrogen for the transportation sector. Hydrogen will become the second major pillar in use of climate-neutral commercial vehicle. The first being is the direct use of electricity. But when it comes to shipping industry, when it comes to airplanes, long-distance vehicles, we definitely need hydrogen. And fourthly, we need hydrogen for hydrogen power plants as dispatchable power and backup power supply. In conclusion, if we want to achieve our climate protection goal, hydrogen is a must. According to the Global Hydrogen Council, Europe will need 100 million tons of hydrogen per annum by 2050. But Europe will not be able to locally produce all these volumes. Germany alone will probably import 80% of the hydrogen it needs. And we need to prepare for these imports from other countries too. So that means three things. First, we need to establish import partnerships as soon as possible. Second, we need the right infrastructure to connect producers and consumers. And third, the bottleneck will clearly be pipelines, ports, and terminals. In 2020, more than 80 million tons of LNG and 104 BCM of natural gas were imported via European seaports. The pipeline system will also transport hydrogen for the future. And that's where our two countries come into play. In North Rhine-Westphalia, where Westenergie is operating, not only, but mainly operating our gas grids, we have 720 kilometers of waterway infrastructures with 120 smaller and larger ports. We have a fully meshed gas network between Belgium, Netherlands, and northwest of Germany. And we have the chance to repurpose this pipeline for hydrogen transport. The ports of Antwerp and Zeebrugge are of utmost importance for the hydrogen economy. From the so-called Sahara ports, there are excellent connections in terms of transport policy, logistic to our industrial centers, such as the Ruhr region. So Belgium and Germany should intensify a structured cross-border cooperation in this area. Second, we need to push for more support. The EU must set up a smart, appropriate policy framework that provides investors and industry with the means to develop a hydrogen market in Europe and markets for imports. As chairwoman of the National Hydrogen Council and CEO of the largest distribution network operator in Germany, I will continue to work on these goals. I'm deeply convinced that there's this huge potential for both our countries to develop synergies, especially when it comes to imports and infrastructure. And that's why I would like to invite you, Tom, to the next meeting of our National Hydrogen Council, which is in March next year. I think you will meet not only the government of Germany, you will meet partners who are interested in cooperate, and we could use our Council to push it forward. We have a chance to build the nucleus of a European hydrogen economy together, not only for the sake of climate protection, not only for more sustainability, but also because of prosperity and social peace. Depends on the success of the energy transition. And so does the future of our societies. And now I'm looking forward to the continued discussion. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, yes. I suggest that you also take a seat in the panel. Thank you very much for the introductory speeches from Mr. Houtekiet and Ms. Reiche. The idea of this panel is to put focus now on the main hurdles to indeed kickstart the hydrogen market. I think it was quite clear from the speeches that indeed hydrogen will play a key role in the decarbonization of several sectors. But of course, there are still quite some steps to be taken to indeed come towards a hydrogen market. But before we kick off the discussion, I would first of all, of course, propose that everybody briefly introduces himself or herself, and also specifically focus on the role of your company in the energy transition. And I would like to start with Mr. Huguet, John Cockerill. Can you briefly explain what is your role? What is the company of? What is the role of your company? What is John Cockerill doing with regards to hydrogen?
Okay, so I'm Roland Heke, Vice President Partnerships and Mobility Solutions. So in my role, I look at the deployment of our technology worldwide regarding hydrogen, and for mobility solutions, of course, it's to expand mobility solutions worldwide. Our company, John Cockerill, is a Belgian group, over €1 billion of revenues, about 6,000 people present worldwide. Regarding the energy transition, we're active in high-efficiency processes, such as furnaces, also environmental solutions with biomass, methanation, involved in microgrids, involved in solar, and involved, of course, in green hydrogen. With over 1,200 references worldwide of green hydrogen solutions. We are one of the leaders in this field for both productions and distributions. We're particularly inspired by large-scale expansion with over 100 cells, well about 105 megawatt stacks of electrolyzers worldwide. Thank you, and nice meeting you and being with you today.
Yep. Thank you. Now I'd like to pass the word to Mr. Arbola. Can you please also explain what ENGIE is exactly doing with regards to hydrogen?
Thank you so much, Madame la Ministre, dear all. So my name is Sébastien Arbola. I'm the EVP for ENGIE in charge of flexible generation and retail. So maybe briefly to introduce ENGIE. ENGIE is a global energy company. We are present in more than 30 countries. We have more than 100,000 employees with a strong mission to deliver sustainable, affordable, and resilient energy to our clients, of course, and also the markets we are in. Whilst we need also to reach net zero on all scope by 2045. That's why also we are in the COP28. And so for that, to achieve that, we have a strategy based on 4 pillars. The first one is to exit coal generation by 2025. In Europe, it's already done, and 2027 in the world. Second pillar is to invest massively in renewable, and we'll achieve 80 gigawatts by 2030 overall in the world. So it echoes very well with the COP28 pledge to triple the renewable energy that we have heard of late. The third pillar, which is really important, is that we are a strong believer that beyond direct electrification, we need green gases. And green gases for us is biomethane and hydrogen. And hydrogen is under my business unit. And so here we have the ambition to produce 4 gigawatts of hydrogen in Europe and in the world. And by the way, we have 2 of our core projects in Belgium. And the last pillar, which is also very important for us, is that if you have a lot of energy coming from renewable, you need a lot of flexible generation to complement this renewable energy. And for that, we are preparing all of gas fleets to be 100% hydrogen ready by 2030. We are investing also massively in a battery system, and we are also envisaging that those electrolyzers could be part of this flexibility for tomorrow's grid. On that, I leave you the floor.
Thank you. Mr. De Winter, what is the role of Fluxys in the energy transition?
Good afternoon, Dear Excellency, ladies and gentlemen. Fluxys, we are a fully independent infrastructure group. We are basically operating mainly in Belgium, so we are the owner of the Belgian national gas grid, but we are also active all over Europe. We're also active in Latin America, and we're also now active in Oman. We basically have a 30-30-30 ambition, which is basically that bioinfrastructure by 2030 will transport 30 terawatt-hour of hydrogen and 30 million tons of CO2. And our key ambition is to really position Belgium as an entry gate, as a hub for hydrogen in Europe. In this perspective, we recently submitted our file to become the hydrogen network operator in Belgium. We also will apply for the carbon neutral operator in the future. But that's basically as well all the strategy that we want to put forward. We also took a share recently in Oman, where we are co-owner of this network, currently the gas network, but we truly have the ambition as well there to develop the whole hydrogen and CO2 space.
Okay, thank you. Now I'm going to pass the word again to Mr. Houtekiet. You first of all, of course, explain a little bit your role as chair of the National Hydrogen Council, but of course you're also Chief Commercial Officer of the Port of Antwerp-Bruges. So what is the role of the Port of Antwerp-Bruges in the hydrogen economy?
Hello. Yeah. We work on three elements. In fact, we work on whatever it has to do with circular economy. So which fields we can allocate in the port which are 100% dedicated to circular economy, and what is the link to sustainability and energy transition. So that's one domain. A second one, everything which is related to carbon capture, CCU, CCS problematic. So there also Europe has two very big investment programs, the Portos project in the port of Rotterdam and Antwerp at Sea in the port of Antwerp, as we say. And the third one is, of course, being the import hub, the Panama Channel also for Europe. And how do we do that? What are the offtake volumes we need for that? What is the infrastructure we need to build on our own and together with partners in the port? And of course, also, how do we team up with projects around the world where those molecules have to come from? There we focus mainly on Northern Africa, Middle East, Houston region, Eastern Canada, and Namibia, South Chile. These are, in fact, the focus areas.
Okay. And then, Ms. Reich, you already mentioned, of course, that you're CEO of West Energy, but can you also explain a little bit more specific the role of West Energy in the hydrogen economy?
Okay, West Energy is a 100% subsidiary of E.ON. E.ON is the largest infrastructure supplier in Europe when it both comes to power grids and gas grids. We supply 48 million customers throughout Europe. West Energy, it's then the largest grid operator in Germany. We run 200,000 kilometers of power grid, nearly 50,000 kilometers of gas grids, both low pressure but a lot of high pressure. So we have sometimes TSO function too. We serve 6 million customers. A lot of them are the so-called German Mittelstand, so small and medium-sized company, highly industrialized, highly energy intensive. And that's why we have a key interest to serve these companies with molecules. When it comes to our own gas grids, 40% of my gas supply comes from process gas. That means the core of German industry and Mittelstand sits in North Rhine-Westphalia and in our area. And here we see our task converting our existing gas grids step by step into hydrogen transport grids.
Okay. I think it clearly shows that we have a very diverse panel of different players in the value chain of hydrogen. So I think we can definitely address the central question. key hurdles and barriers that we still see in the hydrogen markets. So I would first like to put this question to Mr. Arbola. What are, in your opinion, the key barriers to really kickstart the hydrogen market in Europe?
I think, is it working? Yes. I think first, we have been a very big believer in hydrogen since 2015, and we have now roughly 100 people working on hydrogen around the world. What we have seen on our project is a lack of maturity, both on the electrolyzer manufacturer, and maybe my friend of John Cockerill can comment on that, but it's what we have seen as developer, as well as the client's lack of appetite to pay a very large premium. And so this could be solved with time, with engineering, co-engineering with the OEM, what we're doing today, but also with some kind of very nice regulation, CFDs, subsidies, which today are not exactly what we will expect for us to invest in over 20 years or 25 years. So everybody needs to understand that when we invest for 20 years, 25 years. And so when a framework is only for the next 10 years, or when it changes, it's very hard for us to invest and to commit. So that's on the downstream side. I think upstream-wise, we really like to work with the electrolyzer manufacturers to stabilize the design. So there is PEM, there is alkaline, there is pressurized PEM, pressurized alkaline. I mean, this has to stabilize in design, because whenever the design is stabilized, then of course we can replicate, we can massify, and we can invest in a bigger type of project, which of course will reduce the cost of hydrogen, which in turn will reduce this issue of downstream clients wanting to pay a premium to that. So I think, in a nutshell, from what we have seen in the recent past, the last 2 years, is really these two immaturity. I think one, technological-wise, it will evolve rapidly. I think on the downstream side, we have not seen the tool today to support the end clients to really invest over a long period. They are ready for 2 years, 5 years, but beyond that horizon, it's difficult to convince the client that he will have to pay maybe for 50% more, 100% more.
Okay. Maybe I'll pass the floor then to Mr. Huguet to indeed comment on the upstream part, having a cooperation with the producers, the energy producers, on the design of electrolyzers, for example. What is your take on this?
Well, to complement what my colleague Mr. Arbola was saying, yes, there are a number of difficulties. We see that it's not an easy ride. To go from the pilot phase to the large scale, of course, has a lot of unknown. The second point is that, of course, the largest projects, we know that the future of green hydrogen lays with renewable. And this is right, we need to select the right technology. Pressurized alkaline is probably the most promising one from a CapEx and OpEx point of view. Having the low CapEx as well as the very high reactivity to transient conditions, and that's going to be a major thing. One thing that was not mentioned is inflation. That really damaged all the economics of all the business plans. I mean, we've seen that over the years. I think everybody was ready. Then COVID came, and then the war in Ukraine. That completely changed our world, changed all the economics. There were large subsidies given by the countries, driven by Europe, and given business models. All of this inflation put all of that down, because suddenly the economics were not there, the price of hydrogen skyrocketed, and then we started again to develop new strategies. So I think it's a combination of things, and I think it's the willingness of all the players that will play a role in the end.
Okay, thank you. Mr. De Winter, do you agree with what has been said so far, and do you want to add something?
Sure. Basically, the main feedback received from the market is the business case and the difficulty of having a business case, and even more for the basically early movers. We all agree we are in a nascent market, so it's extremely crucial to basically have economical value change with a view on the future as well. So I think we have to work hard in Belgium to get the right support mechanism to make it happen. The second thing I want to mention as well is how to break the chicken and egg issue. We need to invest in infrastructure. That's a clear need for that. We need to be able to transport whatever molecule, green, low carbon molecule, from producer to consumers. At Fluxys, we are willing to invest, but basically the investment we will take is there for a very, very long time. So we need a long-term investment security with long-term investment framework, which let us in a position basically to mitigate the risk. And to come back to what you say as well, we also need contracts. Today it's really hard to get contract from off-takers.
Okay. Maybe a question to the chairs of the hydrogen national councils. Can the national councils indeed also help to come up with specific policy recommendations to indeed address these issues? I think, Ms. Reich, you already mentioned quite a lot of work you have been doing in Germany, but there's been quite some issues that have been popped up right now as well. Do you think the National Council can indeed also bring this to the table and come up with specific policy recommendations for our policy makers?
Yeah, the charm of these hydrogen councils is that you collect different opinion and different interests and bring them together in one advice. And due to the fact that all the key players know their business and know their jobs, politics tends to listen. What's very important. I think we face the same challenges in Germany like in Belgium or whole Europe. First of all, we need an acceleration in renewables. And there still we have the inflation problems, and we still there have the broken supply chains. So very long processes of allowance until really a project starts. Second, policy tends to pick, if there's a whole bunch of problems, one single piece. And what we need here is, from the very beginning, a holistic view and holistic approach from production over long-term contracts, over transport, and the different demand sides. So there's another business logic behind green steel than green aviation or green transport. So, and bring all this together at the same time, that is very complex. What I see is a tendency in Europe, and especially in Germany, to make this as complicated and perfect as possible. So we started, that I was mentioning this morning already, Europe started with a smart idea of setting up the IPCEI projects, not only for hydrogen, but also for semiconductors and others. The idea was to collect everything you need to make one investment possible. The US was very, very carefully looking at the IPCEI structure. The answer was the IRA. And the irony is that the IRA takes more velocity, more speed, and more attraction than the IPCEI projects. The IPCEI project was so complicated to apply for that first the application took very long, and now the approval take even longer. So what does the United States put tax credits both for CapEx and OpEx, so company knows what to do, the tax office knows what to do, and we have one KPI, and that is CO2 reduction. That's it. So it's important for climate change to reduce CO2 reduction, and it's up to you how to figure this out. And what I would like to wish or ask for, and I think here we could really join forces, is to develop the same pragmatism and speed in Germany. Otherwise, we will lose. Tom will build their terminals, but maybe the hydrogen comes from somewhere else. And ThyssenKrupp and Siemens Energy won't build in Europe their plants, but in the US. And we have such an innovative and capable industry. We should use also our chances within Europe. Of course, we have to import, and of course, we have to have international partnerships. But Europe should do its homework that's a really urgent time to do so.
Okay. Mr. Houtekiet, would you like to add something to the very point remarks of?
Yeah, I will not repeat, of course, but I think we took some important steps this year. The Delegated Act was launched, which was really a milestone. I think we are getting progress and speed on H2 Global, which normally I think in the beginning of next year will be somewhere clear. So I think these are important facts. We do see the auction of Total, which is going to the market. You do start to see also other players which are preparing an auction system. So these are all signals that really a market is to be created. What we do miss is somewhere a supporting mechanism on CapEx, like we have on the IRA, because it still is insufficient to drive investments today for a market which will be created maybe by 5 years, and we do not know if there will be a delay or not. So I think that is an important one. The rest I think is mentioned on some pragmatism also on the technologies we allow, I think is also needed, that we are for sure that we keep also the European industry into Europe, because we mentioned already before, you can be very strict, you can be the best one, but if you're alone at the end of the day, Katarina mentioned it before, what do you win? So really some pragmatism to get the market started already with different technologies.
I have actually one final question for each panel member. I heard the IRA, of course, and also the need for a support mechanism to indeed also make sure that the industry can stay here in Europe. So I would say, if you have one key ask for policymakers, there are quite some elections coming up at the EU level, but also, of course, in Belgium. If there's one thing that you think should be addressed as a priority, what would it be? And I would suggest that Mr. Houtekiet can start and we can just do the line.
I repeat what I just said. The technology pragmatism, I think that is really an important one, so that we are not too stick on being dark green in the beginning. We have to go in that direction, but not in the beginning.
So I just can sound Tom. So pragmatism, speed, and courage to invest. This morning I've been saying it's good to be the first in class, but they are never the cool guys. They're pretty much alone. And so do a 80-20 solution should be enough for the beginning. Then we can be much more complex, but start pragmatic in the beginning.
Well, I would say what is important, I will emphasize what my other colleagues have said, is that support on both CapEx and OpEx is essential. It's important also to protect our value chains. It's not only one type of equipment or one import. It has to be balanced deals across nations worldwide, where the people that are exporting receive something in return, and that at the end of the day, each country which wants to boost the energy transition needs to be rewarded in terms of employment, in terms of education, in terms of fully developing its industry, its own industry value chain. And this is this type of support that will sustain the infrastructure, sustain the large hubs that we will need. The time of pilots is over. We're looking at large scale, and to that we need the full line of players, hydrogen players, to be taking a role. It cannot be fragmented. It has to be an overall effort, and for this, associations, councils, governments, industry players, users, etc., all need to work together.
On my side, the two key items are to be technology agnostic, as was said, and more importantly is really to start on CFDs, because CFDs is really bridging the gap from the present to the future. It will also solve very rapidly this issue of chicken and egg, and will finance the infrastructure that are so key in our energy. Without any infrastructure, large scale will not come up. So infrastructure is key. It will take time to be built. For that, they need some certainty. And CFDs is really from the states an anticipation of the future, much more practical for us than subsidies that with a change of market condition will be a bit void like we have seen with the inflation that we sustain in Europe.
Yeah, also from my side, I would say the supporting instruments are key. We have quite some examples in the Netherlands, in Germany, which could also be replicated. It can be a good source of inspiration as well. I could also think of a neutral system in a way that you can have a support mechanism which basically you can recover it from a government perspective on the long run. So once the market has been basically reached, you can basically get your money back as a government. So you basically give a long-term perspective for the whole value chain, to the producers, to the infrastructure owners, to the, and then basically it's a neutral operation. But you basically have long-term tariffs which are stable. So I think it's very key as well for the market.
Okay. I would like to thank all the panelists, and we would like to invite the Minister for the concluding remarks. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you all of you for the inspiring comments and also the inspiring panel. I noted in the key number one recommendations to you said there are elections, but before there are elections, there is still a minister, so I will take the recommendations upon me. 5 panelists, 5 comments, 2 about technology and 3 about sports. So in my concluding remarks, I will respond to them. But let me begin why we are here today and the place where we are. We are in Dubai, of course, and at COP28. COP28, and today is World Energy Day, and throughout the different panels, ministerials, and meetings that I had, what consistently came up is this is after Paris, the second most important COP. In Paris, we decided on a commitment to limit global warming, preferably by 1.5 degrees Celsius. Here in Dubai, in the next 10 days that we are still here, it's an evaluation if we will get there in time. And probably everyone knows already that it won't be the case. So this global stocktake is important for 2 reasons. It's one, link with Paris and see if we can get there, and if we are not, what we are going to do. And already in the making is the solution, what we should do. And what we should do is triple renewable energy capacity, double down energy use, and phase out fossil fuels. That is what today at the World Energy Day was consistently the message that was being spread in the different panels and settings where I was. I come from the ministerial panel on the pledge, and the speaker before me was my colleague, Minister from Antigua and Barbuda, and he said this is a historical responsibility to address the issues of climate change. And he also said that we could make energy out of the wind, the waves, and the sea that surrounds islands like them, and that maybe they can survive. Because let's be honest, we are here in the Benelux Pavilion. We come from one specific geostrategically very well-positioned set of 3 countries, but we don't suffer that much. Yes, we have difficulties and we have challenges. And we also had the water bomb 2 summers ago. But there are also other islands, other countries that will disappear. So that's the reason why it's so important that we are here today and that we also discuss about tripling up, doubling down, phasing out fossil fuels, how we are going to do this. Today, Belgium was part of 2 pledges. The one pledge about the tripling up and the double down and phasing out of fossil fuels, but also a declaration of intent on the certification of hydrogen. Because that's important. We need, and as was said in Belgium and also in Germany, we need huge amounts of hydrogen. Huge amounts of this hydrogen will be green hydrogen in any case. And that will come from other parts of the world. And to de-risk producers of green hydrogen, they also need to be sure that what they are selling to us is specifically green, because we have targets behind that we need to meet. And if we come from different markets, from different places, we see the risk of fragmentation of markets. And that's why we signed this declaration of intent to promote liquidity on the tradable certificates. When we are talking about phasing out fossil fuels, my Omani colleague told me today, to phase out fossil fuels, what we need to do is bring up targets for renewable energy. And Francesco Camara from IRENA said, to phase out fossil fuels, we also need to phase out demand. And both of them are right. And that's why having a target specifically for green hydrogen is pragmatic. It is pragmatic. Because if we rely on wind, on solar, and we have been signing these pledges, all of us in Belgium, we are also going to triple offshore wind capacity. We won't make hydrogen out of it because we will use it for electricity first. But we will be ramping up massively renewable energy capacity throughout the world. It can be made into hydrogen, it can be made into derivatives like ammonia, it can be brought here to Germany, to other parts of the world. It can also fuel the future, like for example in Africa. And so if we want this market to be going, and if we really want to stop with fossil fuels, it is good to have a target on green hydrogen. It is a blessing in disguise. And the target that we have at this moment in Europe and so also in Belgium is 42%. That also means that we have a market of 58% for the other colors of hydrogen. So I'm really done with the discussion on the colors of hydrogen. There is place for everyone. There is place for everyone. Every country decides on its own energy mix. And every country has different perspectives on how to produce hydrogen. And we can do it. We can do it. We have not set 100% renewable hydrogen by 2030. We have set 42. 42. And 58% can be the transition to maybe in the future indeed fully renewable hydrogen. There is a market for blue hydrogen, and specifically in Belgium also we said that blue hydrogen can be a way to unlock also this market. I'm also very happy that today Katrina is with us from Germany. Belgium and Germany are longtime friends. We are. We are very much alike. Our languages are a little bit the same. We are bordering countries. We have the same industries, and we also have our ports. And so that's why we have been working a lot with North Rhine-Westphalia, but also with the team of Robert Habeck on making our connections between both our countries even stronger. We will connect Belgium and Germany by the end of 2028 with a hydrogen connection. What we are building right now is an increasing of the gas capacity to Germany. It will be quite finished. I'm looking and speaking under the control of Rafael. He says yes, it's quite finished. This is in the beginning an increasing gas capacity because of all the trouble that we are having with no more Russian gas. But this can be switched whenever it's needed to hydrogen. And so we are building today this connection between our manufacturing industries that if they can move and switch as soon as possible to green hydrogen, then we can anchor them here and we can have the jobs also here that go with them. But I would like to take the opportunity to talk about the role of the Hydrogen Council. And I would first refer to what we did in April when the Prime Minister of Belgium, Alexander De Croo, and myself, we invited 8 other countries to Ostende. Ostende, a nice city bordering the North Sea, and it was what we called the North Sea Summit. The North Sea Summit who brought to Ostende 8 other countries and the European Commission, not only ministers of energy, but also prime ministers and heads of state, and also the industry. And we talked about the North Sea as being the powerhouse for Europe. We talked about how that we can move and accelerate the energy transition with regard to offshore wind and what is needed. And it was a trilateral format. It was a format where not only policymakers, but also the industry were sitting around the table and had a real and an honest conversation. This led to the wind power plan that the European Commission has announced a few weeks ago, and also the grid action plan from Maroš Šefčovič. And why? Because we listened to each other, but we also understood better each other's positions and specifically what is needed to move forward. If we see at the speed that we need between now and 2030, it's not even 10 years anymore. We still are talking about the next decade, but it's only 7 years. And in 3 weeks' time, it's 2024, it's only 6 years for reaching 2030. And the scale of the targets, and the 40T of green hydrogen, I agree, is a huge target. It's a huge target. No one can do that on its own. Policymakers cannot invent all these policies top-down. And you cannot bring it bottom-up neither, because there are so many uncertainties around. And here is where your ask for support comes in. And so that's why we need institutions like the Hydrogen Councils, the German one, the Belgian one. The Belgian one that was created indeed when we decided on our federal hydrogen strategy, specifically to represent Belgium, not only Belgium, but also its companies on the international hydrogen scene. And also serving as a Spock to the hydrogen sector. But also to provide bottom-up inputs to policymakers in order for us to be able to set up a more coherent regulatory framework. So we cannot implement our federal hydrogen strategy if we don't have with us the inputs that come from the Hydrogen Council. And I think that I can say the same for Germany and the work that you are doing on the German Hydrogen Council. So it's very inspiring to see that both of you are hosting now this event to bring forward that indeed we cannot do it without you, and that we also need to institutionalize, if I may use that word, the sector, so that you can speak with one voice and that we can also hear your voice. One voice, you can have dissenting opinions, that's perfectly fine, but that we have a Spock and that you can also go outside as a Spock. And I would absolutely also thank you for the work that you have been doing already, and also the work that you will still be doing. Because what we have heard here, unlocking demand, is something that you can help us with. We have seen, after that we voted the RED III, the third Renewable Energy Directive, we have seen, and at least we heard from specific companies that they announced tenders to buy green hydrogen, that the market is moving, and to aggregate demands, or also to indicate to policymakers which projects are coming first or which can maybe take a little more time, is also evidence from the sector that we need. And for that, a Hydrogen Council, the Belgian one to me, but also the insights from the German Hydrogen Council, is very important for me as a policymaker to build strong and resilient regulatory frameworks. I would like to come back to the support. I absolutely agree that support will be needed because it is something that is unprecedented and there are not that many projects already. Although we have existing hydrogen demand, we have existing hydrogen pipelines, we have existing electrolyzer capacity. But to ramp up, we need absolutely create a context in which that projects can strive. And I am very sympathetic to the idea of CFDs. The CFD is also the route that we have taken at European and also at Belgian level to support technologies, to support specific projects. The new Princess Elisabeth Zone, the tripling of the offshore wind capacity in Belgium, will be supported with a double-sided contract for difference. The lifetime extension of both of our two nuclear power plants is supported with a two-sided contract for difference. And our existing offshore wind capacity that we have in the North Sea, we transformed it from an LCOE support to a two-sided contract for difference. I want to put a disclaimer. It's not really a disclaimer, but something that we should think about together. We have seen in the past when we have set up support mechanisms that it indeed helped, to kick off the markets from supply or from demand side. So that is a no-brainer, and it explains why you are putting support at the table, and it also explains why I'm saying, okay, I see it, I will think about it. But we've also seen that from the moment that technology or projects are taking off, that sometimes if we move years forwards, that the support mechanism, when it was conceived, it appeared adequate, it worked, but throughout the years that maybe it was not the right one. I have experienced as a minister that you can change it. So we have done so for the Princess Elizabeth Zone. For the first zone, we moved from an LCOE through a two-sided contract for difference. We did this in dialogue with the sector. But this is something that I want to also give back to you to reflect upon. I have not a fixed opinion on it, but to reflect upon how can we design a support mechanism that we can also adapt if needed. If the support mechanism had the result that was required that we had in mind, and if context changes, and it can be also from both sides, willing to look at it from both sides, and we need to be able, as policymakers, to make changes. I say this in a gentle way, because I know that you take an investment decision based on regulated revenue or on a support mechanism. So a modification of a support mechanism cannot have as an output that all of a sudden the project becomes not viable anymore. But in this context, how do we design a support mechanism that can indeed kick off supply, that can indeed kick off demand, but once that is achieved, and once that we need to have, or someone wants to have a conversation, do we need to review? What is important if we do a review? And I think, specifically with regard to hydrogen, but also other technologies, something that we have to have in mind from the beginning. Because let's be honest, every support mechanism that we have designed has been reviewed in the past. And so let's take it in our mind from the beginning when we design it. I would like to thank you, all of you, for this great panel, although there was a lot of noise. It's always the same thing at COP events. I think we are ready, we stand ready to do what's needed, and that if we understand each other in a good way and in a good manner, then indeed we can still reach the targets by 2030. Dear Tom, thank you for all the work that you have done. It was not easy, I know. We put a lot of pressure on you, I know. But being here today, seeing where we are getting, I think we can say it was all worth it. Thank you.